The demand for Kobe's for NBA players is thousands of pairs a year. No more are being made. So it's not like in March or next fall, there's going to be all of a sudden more. It's only going to get more intense if these guys want to keep playing in this shoe.
Welcome to Full Court Fist, the show that takes you around the world of NBA fashion while also bringing you the most pressing, important, biggest news in sneaker culture today. I'm Big Waz, a.k.a. Wosny Lambre. Let's go. Brian Windhorst, who is a national reporter at ESPN, he's one of the best in the business, as plugged in as anybody in the entire industry on the NBA. But now, you're a sneaker reporter, Brian. I read your dope piece at ESPN.com about the scarcity of Kobe Bryant's signature shoes. It's, the ending of the relationship between his estate and Nike. And, he's got the most popular shoe in the league. I want to know what drew you to this story, because obviously sneakers is not something you generally report on.
I was talking to an agent. I was having lunch with an agent during the preseason. And he was telling me, he's like, man, I'm struggling to get shoes for my guy. Like he's talking to me every day and we're looking. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, this is not something you hear.
Never.
You don't hear about NBA players struggling to get shoes. And I was like, what do you mean he can't get shoes? And so he told me this story and I was fascinated by it. So I spent the next few weeks talking to guys. And a lot of times when I start to ask guys about stories, they tighten up. What does this guy want? What does this guy want? But when I would go up to a guy, I'd be like, hey man, how are you getting your Kobe's? Or like, how many Kobe's do you have in reserve? Their faces would all it'd be an expression. Like, it wouldn't say it was excitement, but number one, they like talking about it. Number two, like they were interested in it because this is something all these guys are having. So like the most popular shoes for NBA players that they wear to play games are not being made anymore.
What's the sense you get about how they feel about this shortage in stock? And by the way, just so people understand, right? Kobe's estate, Vanessa Bryant, his wife, basically they came to an impasse with Nike about a new deal, and both sides decided, all right, we're no longer doing this anymore as far as a partnership. Nike said they're no longer producing Kobe sneakers. So that's one, they're just straight up not making them anymore. And then two, NBA players wear sizes that are already scarce. And so it's creating a demand that's just like outsized, right? Just so people at home sort of get a chance in case they didn't read your piece, which they should. But yeah, what's the sense that you get about, are they anxious about this, or has this just become the latest game or competition for them?
Depends on who you talk to. I talked to Booker, and Devin Booker was like, I'll never run out of Kobe's. And look, he has a Nike deal where he doesn't have a signature shoe. He basically, what Nike does for him is they give him player exclusive Kobe's. So I don't doubt that back in his house or Kendall Jenner's condo or wherever he keeps his shoes, he's got hundreds of pairs. I talked to DeMar DeRozan. DeRozan has been wearing Kobe's for a decade, and he's had Nike deal for a decade. He's got a lot. And he goes, actually, I got helped out because they were late on producing them last year. They were behind. And so I got my last big shipment after the season was over. And so I even have more than I would normally have. But that's today. They're going to go through their shoes. What's happened, I don't want to get too much into the business unless you care about it, but
I do care about it.
Over the last few years, particularly since Mark Parker left as CEO of Nike and John Donahoe took over, Nike has cut back on the number of athletes that it has significant deals with. LeBron's still getting his cash. Kevin Durant's still getting his cash. Luka signed a big deal with the Jordan brand. It's not the guys at the very top, but the mid-level guys, they are just not renewing their contracts. By the way, neither is Under Armour. Under Armour let a whole bunch of guys walk. And those guys, especially if they were coming off of a Chinese brand or Under Armour or Adidas, they were like, hey, I'm going to start wearing Kobe's.
Why the Kobe shoe? Like, outside of, obviously, we understand Kobe is an icon. In your piece, DeRozan even calls him the Jordan of our generation to, this current crop of NBA players. Like, Nike makes a lot of basketball shoes. Why is it the Kobe line that guys are gravitating towards so much?
I asked them because I don't know. I've never put a pair of Kobe's on in my life. They like the performance. They like the style. They like the feel. The Kobe 4, 5, and 6 are the most popular. I think 2 years ago, over 100 players were wearing the Kobe 4. Last year, there was over 100 players wearing Kobe's in general. Not only did they like the style and the feel, of them. Players told me they just fell in love with it. They just love the way it feels. After he passed away, it was like making a statement. It was like a tribute. And so in the bubble in Orlando, like I just told you, the last few years, about a quarter of the league were wearing a version of Kobe. He's not quite a quarter, around a quarter, like 20% of the league. Well, in the bubble, there was like 330 players in the bubble. 110 of them were wearing some version of Kobe.
Crazy.
So right after he passed away, it was like a third of the league. It's a combination of all of those factors. And also I think they make them in a lot of different colors, and they look real cool in those different colorways. The whole thing with Nike is, Nike didn't make a lot of them. It was one of the things that Vanessa Bryant didn't like, is they weren't produced on a mass scale. There's way more like LeBrons and Durant's out in the wild than there are Kobe's over the last like 5 years.
You're a shoe leather, fedora in your cap, reporter, journalist. I'm not. What have you heard about the impasse between Nike and the Bryant estate?
This has been reported. He was taking meetings with people about either going to a different company or creating his own line, just being his own owner. I think if you're Vanessa Bryant and you're hearing, it's not the first time she's heard Jordan of this generation. You're seeing that the Jordan brand is a $3 billion a year brand. Obviously, there's certain Jordans that they make limited runs of. But if you want a pair of Jordans, you can get them. She was like, look, I want him to have a brand with that kind of power. In this story, she and Nike are still talking. So they could still come to terms. And it only makes sense for Nike to do this. I don't know, maybe they would sell, but I don't think it would feel right for all of a sudden there to be a Kobe line that wasn't Nike. It wouldn't feel right. It only makes sense for Nike to keep producing the Kobe's. But even if they signed a deal today and announced it tomorrow, there wouldn't be shoes rolling off the line for mass consumption for maybe a year,
At least.
But the factories in Vietnam are closed. There's a foam shortage. Even these guys who think, like I talked to Jay Crowder, he's like, no, I'm in good shape. I got enough for about 2 seasons. Maybe there's a whole bunch of guys out there who have enough for a season or two. But I just said to you, like a quarter of the league is wearing these. Most of these guys change shoes between 3 to 5 to 8 games. Some guys like their shoes tight. Some guys like their shoes more broken in. Some guys use 25 pairs in a year. Some guys use 80 pairs in a year. The demand for Kobe's for NBA players is thousands of pairs a year. No more are being made. So it's not like in March or next fall, there's going to be all of a sudden more. It's only going to get more intense if these guys want to keep playing in this shoe.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Your work, as always, on this was incredible. Brian, we appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Take care.
All right, let's get right into Cop or Drop. And first up, we got Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant is a guy whose game I really love. I love his story, making himself into a super valuable player. Got a big deal from the Pistons after a great run in the playoffs in the bubble. I root for Jerami Grant. However, this is absolutely the worst, and I'm talking about the worst outfit of the NBA season. Supreme fleece hoodie, whatever. Normal run-of-the-mill Supreme North Face fleece hoodie. Some ridiculous patchwork bell-bottom jean pants from a brand called Capital, $2,500 for these pants. That's right, $2.5K. And, some of the worst designer sneakers that you can get on the market. These Balenciaga track sneakers. And look, I don't want to kill the guy, right? I know you want to get attention. I know you want to get put on the Saks Fifth Ave board like James Harden. This ensemble, roundabout $4,000. And this man could not have possibly looked worse with dropping this fit. Next up is my man, Myles Turner, one of the most underrated players in the league. He steps out in Denimcratic jacket. That's a cute little name right there. Acme Studios, who you guys all know and love. And some jeans by another brand that I'm not really familiar with. They're called Brex Denim. Shouts to the good people at League Fits for sourcing that. Myles Turner, another guy who very new to this fashion stuff. Obviously trying to get out there and get his name out there. I'm not mad at the sort of denim motif. I like the flannel sort of inside of the jacket, the blue glasses. He's keeping it true and he's keeping it blue. I give him an A for effort. I'm gonna cop this fit, y'all. And last but certainly not least, LeBron James and Rick Owens. LeBron is a huge fan of these Rick Owens pants. He has them in about 7, 8, 9, 10 colors. Super rare Air Force Ones on his feet. And look, there's generally nothing wrong with this fit. I would be copping this fit on normal circumstances. However, with all the trouble and controversy that LeBron has courted with his relationship to China, I think it was a bad idea for him to dress up as Chairman Mao here. I mean, come on, y'all. This is ridiculous. It's a dead ringer for the chairman of the Communist Party, y'all. I can't do it. I just can't unsee this. LeBron, we dropping this fit. Have some self-awareness, bro. All right, that was our show for today. Make sure you subscribe to The Ringer's YouTube channel. Make sure you're throwing on that notification, giving this video a thumbs up. We drop this every single Friday afternoon. See you next week, kids. We won't be seeing them next week, but I mean, whatever.